Okay, we will get started with lecture 8. Thank you guys for coming. Just when I thought I couldn't get worse. Just kidding. But yeah, thanks for coming. Today we're gonna talk about like more advanced prototyping stuff. So let's get into it. Yeah, so we're gonna do a little recap on what prototyping is, and then go over Smart Animate, and then more advanced prototyping tools, renaming layers, prototyping with variables, and then we'll wrap up for what's in the next week. But here's the attendance form. Please fill it out. Do you need it still? You good? Okay. Okay, fair point. Yeah, here's the slide deck link. We're gonna do a demo too, so if you have the lecture slides, that is helpful, so you can make a copy of the demo yourself. But yeah, we're gonna do a little recap, like what is prototyping, what is it used for? So prototyping is a process of turning like your design concepts into tangible forms that like operate like the final product would. And these can be digital or physical. And you like test them to reveal more insights and see how you can like make it better. And within the context of Figma and other like prototyping apps and tools, prototyping like allows designers to demonstrate how it's going to behave in real time, and then also account for like how users will interact with these. And you get to see it like kind of fully fleshed out like before. Well, it looks like it's coded, but it's not coded basically. Yeah, it's an essentially forming connections between two objects within a frame, and then you can kind of like define what happens within that animation and how like users interact like from A to B. You can also make multiple connections like from one object or frame as long as they have like different triggers, and we'll get into what that is. But yeah, you can make it like with multiple objects at a time. So the components of a prototyping interaction, you have your trigger, which is like how the user interacts with the thing that you selected. And these can be like on click, on drag, while hovering, stuff like that. And then the action is like what's happening when this trigger occurs. So it's kind of like the reaction with the trigger when it's activated. And these are like just opening another layout or frame, or like opening like a pop-up or scrolling to a different page. And then the animation is kind of like how the prototype moves from that one thing to the other. And then you can kind of like define, like the easing of the animation, or like how fast it's going or what it's doing. So yeah. So these are like some examples of what the different animations look like, or different prototyping interactions. So like dissolve is just like a crossfade, very simple. And then you have like move in, move out, and then push. It's like looks like things are being pushed by another thing, so on and so forth. So yeah, what is Smart Animate? It's creating seamless, delightful transitions. And basically Smart Animate looks for like matching layers across multiple frames. And then if those layers match between the different frames, Figma recognizes like what's changed between them, and then applies like a smooth transition between the two to like kind of fill in the gaps of the animation. So like, for example, this is like an app that shows different like hiking trails, and in the different frames, like in this frame, you'll see like they look pretty much the same, but like one thing is different about like one of the tiles. And basically, like since all the other elements of each frame are the same, Smart Animate like notices that, and then like they kind of only change the thing that's different between them, if that makes sense. So yeah, it applies like a very seamless transition between the things that's changed. And in prototyping, you can select Smart Animate from like the list of transitions when you're making the interaction, and then apply it to other things. So this is like a lot of other examples of how it can be used. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And yeah, we can now create much more advanced and interactive prototypes using Smart Animate. Yeah, this is another example, like a lot of loading sequences utilize Smart Animate. Also like parallax scrolling, touch gestures, switches, drop downs, stuff like that. Very nice. You'll notice like it looks like how it would look in the real world, and like you would see this and you probably wouldn't like think twice about it because it's good design. But like on the other hand, if it was bad, then you'd notice. So the fact that you don't notice that it's different or like special is a good thing in this case. Yeah, so like what are the animation properties of prototyping? And like this kind of goes back to the basics of animation in general. So like in animation, you have keyframes, which are like drawings that define like the start and end point, and then like the kind of like intervals in between those 2 points, and they define like what the action of the frame is at a certain point in time. So like you see all the points of like a walking person, that's like each keyframe. And animation can be like very complex to simulate very lifelike movements. So in this like picture, you have like a ball that's bouncing, and it like squashes and stretches because like balls are elastic and they're not like uniform trajectory and speeds. And so like each keyframe of the animation is drawn out and specified like exactly the shape and stuff. And yeah, this is like the roots of smart animate. So yeah, think of animation as the evolution of state over time. You get to see how like an object transforms in different properties like scale, rotation, color, etc. And it helps us determine what keyframes we need to create for whatever animation that we're trying to portray. So scale is like the difference in size. If you have like two different circles and they're like the same object, but in the next frame you just like enlarge it, smart animate will like fill in the gaps, and like it'll look like the ball is growing even though all you did was just change the size of the same element. So in that way it kind of like fills in the gaps. And then also position, like if you move the same object in another frame to like a different side of the frame or anything like that, it'll like make it look like so that thing is moving across the frame during the animation. And then it also does this like with opacity. So if you have like something is like 0 opacity, so it basically looks like it's transparent, and then the next frame it's like full opacity, so it's like very like the color's full, you know. Then like if you make a smart animate interaction between that, then it'll like show up like it's like dissolving in. So yeah, you can also do rotation with this cool example. Like keep in mind that in these two frames, like the squares on the top are the same squares as the ones on the bottom in the next frame, and like same for all the other ones, but like everything was rotated and like flipped. So as long as you keep like the same elements but just transform those elements in the next frame, smart animate will like just like make an animation between the change. Are these making sense to you? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
They just be the same width, like color, or do they need it exact?
Yeah, so it's like using the actual object and then just transforming or like copy and pasting it would like work, or just like having like everything in the frame and then copying that frame with everything in it so that it has like the exact copy, and then if you change everything in that frame, it'll stay like the connections between the objects will stay the same, if that makes sense. So like if you like say you have like a square and then you make another frame and then you like make another square like using like the shape tool, and then like you set the like dimensions on its own, like it's not going to be the same object, so smart animate will not like recognize that it's the same. It has to like literally be the same object, but you can like change that object. And like layer names help with this too. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah, so another property is fill. You can like animate the different changes between like solid colors, gradients, even image fills. It'll like make the seamless transition between those. Yeah, so advanced prototyping, putting transitions and smart animation together. Yeah, again, like to get to prototype mode, you can like click on prototype in your right panel, which is next to the design panel, which is like the default, or you can do like Shift E. But yeah, when you connect two frames, you can make an interaction between like that object in the frame or the whole frame. And then when you do that, like the panel to edit the interaction will pop up. And this is how you can like change the animation style and stuff like that. So this is like an example of what an interaction panel looks like when you're prototyping. And then you have like usually your trigger and your action and stuff, and then you'll have your animation. And that is like something you can choose. Under that is Smart Animate. And yeah, so the way you do this is like open prototype tab, connect two frames together, and then choose an interaction. And then in the animation section, you can choose Smart Animate. And then within Smart Animate, you can also choose like the kind of easing. So it can like ease out or ease in or ease in and out or like bounce, stuff like that. There's like a lot of different options you can like test out and stuff. And then you can also change like the duration of the animation. So if you want something to like dissolve slower or like just move slower, then you can increase the time or the duration. And then yeah, you can repeat this for any other frames that you want to smart animate. So combining transitions with smart animate, if you want to smart animate some layers in your prototype while using another main transition, you can check the box that is just like animate like matching layers. So like if you still want it to push or like move in a certain way, but you want it to like still do the smart animate function of like finding the matching layers and like making those transitions, you can still do that with like animate matching layers. It's just like a checkbox instead. Yeah. So since Figma like matches layers when you're using Smart Animate, it's important to keep track of like your layered names between transitioning frames. Otherwise, things might get messed up. And in general, I think it's like good practice to keep your layers organized and like name them for like what it actually is. It'll help you in the long run. Yeah. So like in this example, there's like a little map and um you'll see like in the left frame, it's called like Explorer 1. They have like status bar frame and navigation group, which is like the bottom bar of like the screen. And they have like the same names and they're highlighted like in both frames. So since they're the same names, when you do Smart Animate, like you'll see it stays on the bottom of the screen, like stuck there, while everything else that's different moves. And it like looks very clean and smooth. But like it still pushes. So like you're doing like the push action, but like still animating the matching layers. So now we will do like a little demo so you can get a better understanding of this. But yeah, we're gonna go to the prototyping in variables demo page. So if you have this open, I'd highly recommend following along. You have it open? Okay. Yeah, so there's like a solution. Oh, you should first go to like prototyping mode in your top right. And then yeah, there's like a solution so you can see all the like fully made interactions between the frames and like what you're trying to go for. And basically I think this is like a restaurant app, kind of like Yelp, where you have like different restaurants and then like they pop up and you can like, delete them and you're saved. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Let me hide this real quick. Okay. So we're gonna start with like under the you try. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. Let me go back to that. You're welcome. Oh really? Is your battery low? Oh, you can use this charger. Chris, it's okay. Of course. Did you get the slides, Alex? Mm-hmm. Just yeah. Does it have this demo? Okay, then can you go to like on your Figma app? Go to like the Figma decal, like where it has all the slide decks. And then just make a copy of the lecture 8 there. Do you need help? I don't think you're on the same one. Okay, you have this demo? Let me just.
Yeah, I also just.
Delete the interactions and do it yourself. Or like duplicate all those frames and then like delete the interactions. Sorry, we should update that link. Are you sure? Okay. Okay. Shall I begin? Okay. Okay, so we're gonna start with this frame here. It's an iPhone 8 frame, but yeah. So the next frame that we're gonna navigate to is like this one on the right, which is like our bookmarks. So like if you think about like this screen, the destination screen, like what would you push to get to your bookmarks page? Please answer. On this screen, what button would you push to get to here? This one? Good job. So guess what we're gonna do with that button? Make a connection from the button to the next frame. And then you'll see like your interaction details pop up. And we're gonna keep it like on click, navigate to, and then smart animate. Yeah. And then if you have, you guys have the flow starting point on the first frame? Maybe it says like flow 2 or flow 1. Okay, so to make it, select the first frame, the whole thing, and then on the right, you'll see flow starting point in the panel, and then just click add. And then there's a little preview button you can push to see what you just did. So here's our first frame, and then if you tap on the bookmark button, it navigates to bookmarks. Does it work for you? Yeah. You can also change the interaction to like push if you'd rather have it like, slide in. So I'm gonna do like push to the left, and animate matching layers is like how you maintain smart animate if you want to do a different action or different animation. And then that looks like that. How you guys doing over there? Okay. Moving on. We're gonna do like the same thing but going backwards. So like on the bookmark page, select the like arrow, the map icon, and then we're gonna have it go back to the first frame and kind of do like the same thing. So we can navigate back and forth between the two pages. And then moving on, we want to connect like the second frame to the right frame with like the delete button. And this is like used by dragging like the second card to the left to like slide it over if you want to delete it. So we're gonna select this like gather restaurant card and then make a connection to the next frame. But instead of on click, we're gonna do on drag. And then I think I'll just do smart animate. And let's see how that looks. Yeah. And then if you want to like do the same thing by going back to like change your mind, you don't want to delete it, you can also do on drag. Does anyone need me to go over a step? Okay. And then you also have like the trash can. So if you want to delete this card, you're gonna make a connection from like the red rectangle with the trash button and then go to the last frame. and it'll be on click, navigate to this frame and smart animate. And then if you, let's preview what it looks like so far. You have this button, you can drag, you can delete, and then it's gone. But what if you change your mind again and you want to undo? You make a connection from the undo button back to the second frame. Then you can revert your changes and all the settings should be the same. And let's see, I think, yay, it works. How'd you guys do? Okay, I'll give you some time. To tie up all our loose ends. I'm also gonna make like a return to the destination page. You guys need help? Okay, okay. Did you do it? Any questions? Was it intuitive? Okay, good. And then you can see the final product. You can navigate between these. You can delete the card. So go back. Yay. All right. I think, yeah. So we did. Now we will talk about renaming layers with Christopher. Thank you.
Hey. So, as our design system gets larger, or as we go from like lower fidelity to higher fidelity, you might have just been putting stuff on the page, and now you need to clean stuff up. So there's this really neat trick where you can just rename a bunch of layers very smartly. So if that is smartly a word, that's kind of ironic. But so here on the page, we had a bunch of components and we wanted to make them unique. So you can see we added, well, we renamed them to be cards specifically, but then we added this suffix at the end to be a unique identifying number. So before Smart Animate, Figma didn't place as much importance on the layer names, but as we know, Smart Animate is reliant on this naming hierarchy. And so this requires us to pay attention to this. And so here you can see that these cards were added in order. So now you have 1 to 6, which is pretty cool. You can also add different things like decreasing numbers or adding their name. Yeah, this is the through the layers panel on the left sidebar. And you can right click the layers you want to rename and choosing to rename them. You can add every layer to the exact same name and add a suffix or a prefix. And you can see what layers or objects exist in other frames or parts of your file by going to the prototype tab and hovering over an object or layer in that frame. Figma is going to highlight all the other frames that it exists in, which is really nice and useful when you're debugging these things. Questions? No? Okay. Let's talk about animation. This is my favorite slide of today's presentation. So great. So these are 12 principles of UX motion. And what we're trying to define as a designer is how can we make this animation useful, but also how can it serve as a purpose to aid instead of distract the user? I myself, when I'm designing my websites, I like interaction and animation. I think it's very cool, but you know, it's very easy to get carried away. That can distract the user from the main focus that you're trying to convey. So functional animation establishes a well thought out hierarchy and relationships between groups of information. You can see here, This animation is very satisfying to watch. These are all of the sort of basic principles that you can sort of use and expand on. And animation should feel natural. So similar how we model animated objects, and to a certain extent, animation should try to follow the rules of physics, try to abstract weight and speed into our designs. And so these curves can achieve this effect. You can see how this circle sort of snaps back into place after going really fast in one direction. So let's talk about context. So using animation is a good way to indicate that an action has been performed. So if you have a list of posts that have loading, you can slide up to help the user understand that they can see more with this action. I use animation a lot for like asynchronous loading times. It's very great. The user clicks a button. You want the user to know that we have recognized they have clicked a button. You don't want them to like spam request. And I'll tell the user, through the use of like a spinner that, we're working on getting your data loaded and ready to present. Another case is subtlety. So a good animation should be one the user doesn't even notice. And this purpose is to help achieve a specific objective, keeping things simple and intuitive. So for example, you see these posts on the right slide up from the bottom. That feels more natural. Instead of on the left-hand side, these posts come in at all different directions. It's kind of jarring, and that makes the animation the forefront of this design rather than the posts themselves. This third case is orientation. So think of your screens like taking 2D space on your prototype frames. Animation should provide a consistent sense of spatial orientation, make them easily navigatable. You can see on the left-hand side, when you click this button, it slides up from the bottom and slides out to the left. And that doesn't really make consistent sense. The one on the right is much more consistent. You can see this top blue, what is this? This blue avatar sort of slides into the next frame, which is a really great, elegant animation. And animation should definitely be a part of your prototyping process. Understanding how information flows and transitions from one screen to the next, very important. Definitely consider this when designing the UI or UX of your app. Any questions? Great, we're gonna jump into variables. We talked about this, I think, super early on, maybe week 3 even. But yeah, variables, once again, are reusable definitions like styles that can be assigned to various attributes, like colors, numbers, or strings. And unlike styles, variables can switch between definitions based on the theme applied. So this allows us to get some interaction into our prototyping. So we can see here, we defined a bunch of color variables and assigned them to values here on the right. And these variables will take on different values based on the theme we've defined. So we can toggle between the light theme and the dark theme. And you can see this component down here is using the variables to display their color. So when we toggle between the themes, this component's colors will also be toggled. And yeah, here are the 4 types of variables. And you can apply these to layers using the fields in the right sidebar. And what that looks like is if it's a Boolean variable, you can right click on the visibility icon or click this like little eye. Numbers and strings have this variable icon, or you can open the drop-down menu on the right side. Slide is super small, but we'll see an example of this later in the demo. And colors are the style icon right here. And yeah, so depending on what variable you're using, it'll be a different way to apply it. So yeah, variables, we like variables. So this is before variables. This is after variables. Our designs can breathe a little bit. This is a spaghetti mess. This is horrible. And I'll show you an example of how our designs scale so crazily in the demo. But yeah, it's really easy to get super complex, super fast, even though this is like a simple shopping cart app where you're just adding, there's only 4 things you can possibly add to your shopping cart. And yet it took, I'm not even gonna count how many frames over here of the exact same design. So variables are great because you can prototype interactions with them. So you can add triggers that will cause the variables to update. So here you can see we've assigned an on-click method to some button, some thing in our design, and we decided to set a variable. The variable is selected item, and we're setting it to be cherries. So that's great because back here, oh, do we use cherries at all? No. In our example, you will see that this is great, and we don't have to prototype a completely different copy of our design with this one thing changed. We can just simply change it right here because it's a variable. And here's an in-depth way of how to add it. So you go to the prototype tab, you click the plus icon to add an interaction, you select the trigger, and then the method to be called, which in this case is set variable. You're going to pick the variable, which was selected item, and then you type in the new value you're changing the variable to. Additionally, you can add expressions, which are mathematical functions. These are a little scary, a little intimidating, but they can make things very dynamic. So you can write these expressions directly in the fields of the interaction modal with some certain syntactical rules. And you can use the selection picker to choose the suggested variables and even operations. So you can see here, again, it's really small, but this greeting variable is adding the string Anna. And here, when this method is clicked, this greeting variable is added with Alexia. So we can imagine that this welcome string must be our greeting variable, and we're adding different strings onto it based on what is clicked. Additionally, you can add conditional logic, which can define different outputs depending on user inputs. So you can enable a button if a certain criteria is met. You can show an overlay if a user hasn't selected an option. And in order to add this conditional logic to a prototyping action, you can just simply select the new action type conditional. And you can see right here, this will happen on click. Instead of just simply setting this variable, we decided to add a conditional to check the volume level first. Then we set it to be a certain thing. Otherwise, we set it to be something else. So if you are a CS student, like I am, probably very comfortable with if-else statements, but if not, that's okay. It's really just saying if some condition is met, take this action right here. If volume is 600, do this. Otherwise, we do something else. In the context of prototyping, you can think of variable modes as groups of different values for the same variable. So these different modes can be used in prototyping actions for easier customization. And some ways to use them, you can set mode values based on context. And this is going to be multiple modes to customize your variable values without needing to edit or create new interactions. You can also use modes and expressions, where we use the values of different modes to build interactions and perform calculations. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, here I am. So this is a very simple sort of thing we're going to be building here. And let's really quickly do it without variables. So what this would look like is, So you have this frame over here. When the user clicks on these two images, we want to change this text. So, oh, actually, fuck.
Okay, I sent the link in the Slack. Hopefully it's the right. Yay.
Okay. All right. While we're all copying this, I'll go through this example of a pre-variable approach. So if I have this empty state here, I'm probably also going to have two more of this exact same file here to account for my different states. Right. So here I'm going to have cherries. And over here is pears. So now, when we're prototyping, if we click on cherries, I want us to go here. Wait, I lied. There we go. I want us to go over here. And if we click on pears, I'm going to go over here. And now, if we're on the pair page and we click pears, we probably want to stay here. So that's okay. We don't have to do anything. But if we click cherries, we definitely want to move over to the cherries page. And therefore, we want to do the same thing with pears on the cherries page. And if I can select the right thing here. Okay. So now you can see with only two options, we sort of start to get this already a little bit of a mess here. Got arrows going all over the place. We have three screens where only one single piece of text is changed across all three of them. So that's a little inefficient, but with variables, we can make this a lot easier. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this and dive into this demo. So what we're gonna do is go to our design tab, go to our local variables and create a new variable. This is gonna be a string. I'm gonna call it demo because that's what we're doing. And the value it should take on is empty. Great. So let's go to the text we want to make this variable refer to. And this is going to be our empty string. So we can go here and we can select this text icon. And where are we? Remember this variable button right here? I can apply a variable and I want it to be demo. So now you can see if I change this, our text on the page changes because it's referring to this variable we've defined. I'm gonna change it back to empty. Get out of here. And now let's start to add some prototyping interactions with these variables. So I'll go to prototype and I'll go to this cherry object and I'm gonna add an interaction. So on click, I want to set a variable. And then I'm gonna select demo and I'm gonna change it to cherries. Similarly, with pairs, I'm just gonna add a call to set variable on click. And it's gonna be demo and pairs. Oops. Cool. Now I can preview this. You can see only needed one page. So that's very cool. You can also see we can add conditionals. I'm not going to dive into that, but this is where you'd add them right here. And yeah, any questions? So a really small example, but I hope you can see potential use cases for your own designs. And yeah, we'll go ahead and move on. Short lecture today, already wrapping up. Let's talk about some announcements. Homework 8 is going to be the Smart Animate, and you're going to be creating a Pokedex. This might be my second or third favorite homework. I do like Pokemon, but I don't really like Smart Animate. Hopefully you enjoy it more than I do. Maybe I'm just bad at it. Maybe it's a skill issue. But Lab 8 is going to be about smart home prototyping. You're focusing on a more practical use case, and you're coming up with a smart home app with your TA and team. Secret word for today is pairs. I know, I'm sorry. See the slide, I panic. It's pairs. If you were listening to my demo, we would be talking about pears. The fruit. Yes. Oh, everyone that's watching the recording, which they would also have hopefully watched my demo. But yeah, thank you all for coming. What a week. Have a great spring break. I'm actually so excited. Much needed. Woo.